I realized for the first time in my life that there's pure, absolute evil in the world. My name is Bob Cippele, Jr. I'm a petroleum landman. I'm currently living in Van Alstyne, Texas, and used to live in Longview, Texas, and was in Longview for 32 years. Been in the oil and gas industry for 41 years. Went to college at East Texas State University, graduated with my bachelor's in 3 years in 1975, and then took 3 years to get my master's in 1978, and have been a doctoral candidate twice. My father and mother had a bad experience at a Baptist church that we were attending in Tyler, Texas. As a consequence, I did not go to church anymore except for weddings and funerals. Had a Bible at home. Every time I tried to read it, it just seemed to open at Deuteronomy, showing me all the sins I have committed in my life, and so I couldn't get past that. I used to think that people that talked about demons and angels and believed in all that stuff had watched way too many Hollywood horror shows or movies, and I thought they were a half bubble off plum. Excuse me, I have goosebumps still. Once that encounter happened and you realize, or it's pointed out to you what's going on, I get tense about this. I was going through a rough period of my life. I had lost my youngest son 6 years before on Christmas Eve. Christmas is still hard for me. He was in a coma for 5 days, 2 brain surgeries to try and lighten the pressure on his brain. And 4:30 a.m. Christmas Eve morning, the surgeon told us they couldn't save him. So I lost my youngest son. I was not a Christian, but I knew there was a God, and I was extremely angry at God. People that murder and steal and lie and cheat and all that, and they're running around just fine. But you take him. Things had gotten so bad that I was seriously considering suicide. Actually had a pistol in my hand. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed with that pistol, and 2 things stopped me at the time. Number one, I thought if I did that, I may never see my son who had passed away again, and he was a great Christian. And then I couldn't leave my wife to deal with a failing oil company. And what drew me to Christ and to God, it was nothing less than a demonic encounter. Unless someone's been there, it's hard to explain how dark a hole you can be in and how deep the hole is that you can't see anything. If you see light, you think it's a train coming to hit you because nothing good's happened. Things were going along great. Had a thriving business, we were making good money, and then all of a sudden, it's like you hit this dark, impenetrable wall. Things started falling apart. What we thought were massive electrical problems, motherboards, not hard drives, but motherboards in our office computers would fry. Contacted the electric company and put 3 monster surge protectors coming into the office so it couldn't happen again. Didn't stop a thing. They said there were no power surges. We would get these odors. It would be like somebody with the worst body odor that you've ever encountered in your life defecated on your desk. It would run you out of your office. And you'd go next door and grab the engineer or the geologist and say, "Come in here, you're not gonna believe this." And they'd come in, and right after they got in, it disappeared. Like there was nothing lingering, nothing there. And it wasn't just my office, it was everybody's office in this building. And then people's personalities started changing. People that were normally kind and gracious started getting greedy and doing things behind people's backs. People you've known for 30 years. Nothing was right. So everything started falling apart, and I started having to let people go. And it got to the point where the company next door, their business fell apart too, and left. Nobody wanted to work there when it was dark. We had magnetic locks on the door. You have to push a button for the door to unlock so you could go out. That way people didn't just wander in from the street. I pushed the button to open the door, and right here, something went about that loud. I jumped back, shut the door, looked around, there's nobody in there. I'm going, what happened? My wife is coming out of the other side of the building. And I said, did you just hear something? Like somebody laugh or something? And she goes, no. I said, get in the car, we're leaving now. It was an I won, you lost laugh, very mocking. And I'm still freaked out today by that because I can still hear it. There was no way to explain it away. There was nothing else in the building that was even on that could cause that. There's no radios, there's no nothing. All the electronics are gone. So I called my friend the next day and told him what happened. He said, do you mind if I bring a friend? I said, sure, come ahead. So I'm up there Saturday morning boxing stuff up, and I get a phone call from my friend saying, can you come down to the Brookshires and meet us in the parking lot? I drove down to Brookshires, met him. I got in the back seat of my friend's car and sitting in the front seat passenger side. This guy turns around and introduces himself and says, hi, my name is Steve Hemphill, and everything that's gone wrong with you has nothing to do with you. Your business failing? No. As a matter of fact, everything that happened was my fault. I'm the one that ultimately made all the decisions. I won't repeat how I said it because I wasn't a Christian at the time. He said, you're having an encounter with a demon. All right, at this point, I'm thinking he's nuts. He's watched too many horror movies or something. I was ready to get out of the car, and my friend said, no, stay, listen to what he has to say. I said, you're crazy. But they said, what do you have to lose? Listen to us, and we have a plan. And I said, okay, and what's your plan? I said, why are we meeting here? Steve said, I believe that the demon you're encountering is limited or confined to that physical locale. It's not attached to you, it's attached to that facility because the previous owners had had issues there before. We're going to stake the perimeter of your property. I said, stake it with what? 1-inch angle iron stakes about this long, and they had written scripture on all the sides of the stake. What's this going to accomplish? Come on, guys. So we meet in front of my business. We get in the parking lot, get out of the car. Steve's looking around, and he said, what happened to that nursing home behind your office? I said, well, it's been closed for several years. What about this used car lot that's over on this side? And I said, it went out of business 6 months ago. What about the businesses across the street? They went out of business between 6 and 9 months ago, too. Nothing's moved back in. I've been kind of buried up in my own problems. I hadn't thought about what was going on around me. Steve says, okay. And he starts walking the perimeter. And I can see his mouth moving 2/3 of the way around. And something changed. Something changed. Part of the darkness that we had been experiencing there started lightening up. And I turned to my friend and I said, what's he doing? He's walking the perimeter and praying, and he's giving whatever is here a chance to leave or stay and fight. And he finishes walking, comes back to us, and he said, okay, let's start staking this corner. So they hand me one of the stakes and a 3-pound sledgehammer, short-handled one. Steve said, I want you to hammer the stake in. He said, I want it in all the way and 1 inch below the surface of the ground. I said, you got it. So we're right by a stop sign. I start hammering the stake in. I don't get halfway in. I'm hitting the stake so hard, I'm down on both knees, the top's curling over. The stop sign's doing this every time I hit the stake. Steve lays his hand on my shoulder and he says, Bob, let me help. And I said, what can you do that I can't? I'm bigger than you. He said, just let me help. I stand up and I hand him the hammer and I go stand next to my friend. Steve gets down there and he goes, tap, tap, tap. 3 blows, it's all the rest of the way in and 1 inch below the ground. And I turned to my friend and I said, could he do that? I couldn't. And he said, he's a righteous man. Well, I didn't understand what that was. I'm totally confused at this point. We got to the fourth corner and I was finally able to get that final stake in all the way. We went inside and he said, which side, which part of the building is the darkest? And I said, light-wise? He said, no. Feeling-wise. The other side over here in the conference room. We went in, sat down at the conference table, and he handed us prayers. We read the prayers. I tried praying when my son was in the hospital and dying, but I didn't really understand how to pray. They cared. Their prayers were sincere, and I felt it. The presence that was there felt it because it left. And I don't know how many years, even before we got there, that presence had been there. Very dark. You can put him off, you can put Satan off, you can put his demons off, his minions, whatever you want to call it. I realized for the first time in my life that there's pure, absolute evil in the world. There just is. I'm sorry. If there's absolute evil, there's absolute good. And that's Jesus Christ. Which do you want to influence in you? He was saying, are you ready to listen to me now? Are you ready to come to me now? How much lower do you think you can go without accepting my help? He did that on a Saturday. The next day was Sunday. I realized what I had to do, and so did my wife, and we gave our life to Christ. We ended up selling that building, and it became a very successful restaurant, used car dealership. Came back, very successful. The business is open to back up. If you let him, God will change your life. And he'll change you. I was a very reasoning person. I still am. Very, very methodical, very logical. And for me, it was, I've been wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things. I was listening to the wrong people. I thought I was God. Nope. But some people don't want to accept the fact they're not the end-all, be-all. There's a force bigger than you. You can read about it, you can see movies about it, watch documentaries, until it happens to you. When you've been in a dark place, mentally, physically, emotionally, every way you want to look at it, spiritually, when you're around a dark presence, or dark presences in your life, if you're around it long enough, you think that's normal. You don't see that there's something else, there's something better. You think that's normal. Darkness is not the way. But you have to believe, you have to accept.